All right. In our last tutorial, I talked about how to install JPF and how to set it up in NetBeans and how to run a sample application using NetBeans. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk to you about how to build it from command line. Sometimes, most preferably, Java developers use it from command line. It gets a little bit tricky in the command line. That's the reason why I'm explaining it specifically. Sometimes not if you have configured it properly. And we'll walk through their build script and the build properties and how to run it from command line, and then a little bit more about jpf.properties file. We have, I mean, if you have followed my last tutorial properly, you should have jpf-core directory under your jpf underscore home directory, and you should have had your site.properties configured to this thing, which is essential for the subsequent steps. And if you have not seen the prior video, I highly recommend to check the first video in this series of tutorials. All right, without further ado, let's get to this tutorial. And the jpf-core directory has a lot of subdirectories. This is a standard folder structure what jpf-core uses, and any of the extensions that uses that's built for JPF uses as well. bin is a standard directory. You can run, I mean, all your executables are here. If you're Unix-based system, then you will use the shell scripts, and if you're a Windows-based systems, you'll be using .bat files. And build this temporary directory where the classes would be built, and the required the jars which are supposed to be built during this build process gets built as well. And build.xml is the ant build script. JPF uses ant and not Maven. So I'll walk you through this. And is all the MD files which JPF has as well. And anything related to Eclipse goes here, especially when you're running JPF through Eclipse. These are the things that are used to launch, which is similar to the bin for a terminal. Same is the case with NetBeans. And source directory is where JPF source Java files are. The jpf.properties is a sample jpf.properties, and we'll talk about it in much more details. So let us go to the jpf-core directory. All right, so we are in the jpf-core directory, and we see the build.xml, which is an ant build. And let us do a quick review of what it has. The default target is built, so if you just call it through just ant, this is the target that gets called. And compile is for compile, and clean test. I'm not going to explain more about ant. I encourage you to read about ant if you don't know about ant, which is a standard build tool used by any Java developer. So let us first clean the build directory. So on clean, it just deletes the build directory, so there's no more build directory. If you see here, there was a build directory and there's no more. That's the one that got cleaned up. That's essentially deleting that folder. So let us build JPF. So because build is the default target, you don't have to specify any target because that's the one that will be called. So I hit and it's going to take a little bit of time. Um, um, in my machine, it probably took around a minute. Depending on your system configuration, it might take a little longer. You can ignore these warnings. These are some of the deprecated classes and functions what JPF, this version of JPF uses. There's nothing to worry about. Unless and until you're not developing JPF from the source code, in which case it does worthwhile to look into the warnings. It's going to take a bit of time, so I'm going to leave that aside and look at some more other informations. We saw a sample site.properties file last time from the JPF website. Uh, so this is the jpf.home and jpf-core, which you should have. And eventually, if you add any extensions, which I would eventually be making a video about the extensions in which you can look at it. You should add the property extensions, and there's this variable, the key of these properties file extensions, to which you need to append whatever you have added as an extension to run with JPF. That's pretty much about the site.properties file. You can also give information if you have any external class path dependencies, you can specify that here. But let's ignore that for now. So JPF is built. You can see that from the ant build. So once you have these, the build is successful. JPF should have built these jar files. So JPF.jar is the actual JPF that got built, and some rest all is more of supporting nature to JPF. We would look at the builder properties file because those are some additional information you can give for your JPF. Say in here they have given in the sample file they have given the revision number, what is the Java version it is using, so on and so forth. You can add any more dependencies what you see fit in the build.xml, which you don't have to tweak or touch the build.xml at all. Say for example the JUnit home, so on and so forth, you can probably give it in the build.xml. Say if you want to point to the JUnit, then I would just go here and then and then I would add the JUnit home location here. So that way it's more cleaner and goes along with the architecture of JPF source as well. So, and then let's now look at running the JPF from the command line. So, and all JPF that's run through the command line is invoked through this run jpf.jar. So all these are put into the let's so all these goes to this build directory under this jpf-core directory. So when you're invoking JPF from command line, you would probably be invoking it from the run jpf.jar, which will start JPF and model check your code. So let's do a sample check. So as I told you last time, there's a lot of examples that comes handy with JPF. That is all under the source directory. Under the source directory, under the examples, JPF has a lot of examples. You can see that here. There's a lot of examples, which I would walk you through some of the examples in the further tutorials. But let's try to run, say, a sample that is eraser.jpf. So the .jpf file is essentially again a key value properties file, uh, which gets invoked, and then JPF runs whatever that's been specified in the .jpf file. Let's look at the .jpf file that we are going to run right now. So the target is the essentially saying what is the main class, the class that contains the main method, public static void method that's to be run. So in this case, we are specifying it to racer.java, which has a public static void main. So the target, so this is the source that'll be invoked, and listeners and reports, we look at them in the later section. And if you're having any class path dependencies, you can provide that as well, or any other source directories which you need to add for model checking, that can be specified using this thing. So you can directly use a file name as of, because JPF is going to check in all these locations. And if you're having multiple directories, they are separated using a comma. And let us run this. So I'm essentially calling java dash jar, and then the jar file name. So this is the way in which you will be running a jar in Java. And then the input is the .jpf properties file that would be called, and eventually whatever is supposed to be called based on the target property that you have set here will be called and model checked. So I'm running this. So JPF has essentially model checked this particular piece of code, and then found out there was an error. So this is how you would run JPF from the command line. We'll also look at the jpf.properties file that is a sample jpf.properties file. Let me open this file. This is a sample jpf.properties file, which is essentially this file which we saw. So here, if you look at it, it has been divided into 5 main sections, I believe, which has 5 main sections. So the first one is all the global, anything that's global to the JPF core, and second one is the search part. JPF essentially searches your code and then through a search tree, and then that's the way it model checks. So all the information related to search, you can see the samples of it here. And anything related to JPF VM, JPF essentially runs its own VM on top of JVM, Java VM. So anything related to that goes here. I would encourage you to look at the architecture related videos, which I'll be eventually making. So you can go through that tutorial to get more information about the architecture, so that whatever I'm talking right now makes sense. So this is anything related to the choice generator. So JPF creates various choices for the interleaving of threads, so on and so forth. So that is done through these properties. And the reporting is not more like Excel report or anything. In JPF, it reports back any kind of errors or any kind of abnormalities which you have asked JPF to model check. And the listener is basically a callback location where JPF calls back for certain mismatches, which you would be mostly using if you're trying to consume JPF or trying to develop some add-ons on top of an existing JPF. So that's pretty much about JPF.properties file. If you're more interested, all the properties what JPF uses is a key value store, and it is finally gets encoded into this object, the config.java, and their gov.nasa.jpf package under the JPF source directory. If you want to hack into the configuration in the source of JPF itself. So that's pretty much about running JPF from command line. Thanks for watching the video.